All right, it's good to have all of you here, and thank you for. Want to thank our love streaming crew who is love streaming this. This is our community member orientation, and we're going to talk some about unity, beliefs, teachings, practices, and so we welcome you here. We are about building the beloved community, and so it's important that all of us be a part of this, that we are building this community together. And so welcome. We are grateful that you have joined us and for our community member orientation. So Reverend Johanna and I will be leading this today. And Reverend Johanna, could I ask you to lead us in prayer as we start the class today?
Absolutely,
Thank
Reverend
you.
Tim. And for those joining us online, mahalo for joining us and sticking with us during the time gap between the service and for those in person, welcome. Good to have you here with us. And I invite each one of you to just close the outer eye as we dive deep into our expression of oneness. We know that the presence of God is amongst us, within us, and as through us. We give great thanks for those that are online, those that are here, and those that are on this way as we dive deep into the community orientation, membership orientation. We see, God, that you are the one, your presence is the one that ignites this church, that brings the people and sustains this community. We know that each one of us is here for your holy purpose. Thy will be done. And thank you, God, for your continued presence in this community. And so it is. Amen.
So it is.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you. So Reverend Johanna is going to help us with our PowerPoint. And so if we could go to that next slide, please. All right, Emma Curtis Hopkins is called the teacher of teachers. And the reason she's called the teacher of teachers is because she taught a number of New Thought people like Melinda Kramer from Divine Science, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, who are the co-founders of the Unity Movement. She taught Ernest Holmes, the founder of religious science, now called Centers for Spiritual Living. And so we're part of a metaphysical tradition called New Thought. That is, we have a new thought. It's really not new. It goes back to early Christianity and the followers of Jesus. But it's a new thought about Jesus and about how we live this life, this spiritual life. That is not about just worshiping somebody. It's about us actually embodying it and living the life that Jesus taught. It's about embodying the things that Jesus said and did. So it's not a new thought because Jesus taught this. But along the way, things got forgotten. And so Jesus, who is our way shower, became such a total focus that people said, oh, he is the great exception rather than the great example. And Jesus came to give us an example, like he said in John chapter 14, verse 12, greater things shall you do. So Jesus believes in us being able to do this. And Emma Curtis Hopkins was someone who taught this and had taught people about how to really embody New Thought and metaphysics and spirituality. And so Emma Curtis Hopkins is called the teacher of teachers that is in the New Thought movement. She had at one time been the assistant to Mary Baker Eddy, who was the founder and editor of Christian Science. So anyway, those are some of our roots. If we could go to the next slide. On the left is Charles Fillmore. On the right is Myrtle Fillmore. They are the co-founders of this movement. They worked together to find healing for people. They worked together to find a way that people could embody spirituality and to take it back to their own faith traditions. They weren't looking to start a new faith tradition. They wanted to empower Lutherans, Sufis, Hindus, Baptists, Catholics, wherever they were coming from, to empower them to take it back to their spiritual community, that we can really embody this presence of God living as us. And so they taught healing and prayer. And they would have people line up for blocks to come and pray with them because people were experiencing miraculous things. Myrtle Fillmore had been given a diagnosis of terminal tuberculosis. She was told that she had about 6 months to live. And she went to a lecture where she heard this phrase, "I am a child of God. Therefore, I do not inherit sickness." And she used this affirmation for 2 years, along with other prayers, to heal every part of her body and to ask their forgiveness for ever calling any part of her body weak or diseased. And after 2 years, there was no sign of tuberculosis or illness in her body. Charles Fillmore was impressed by this, and he began practicing it as he had a withered leg and a really bad hip injury. And he got to the point where he could take the braces off of his leg, and his leg actually measurably grew as an adult. So the foundation of the unity movement is prayer. And Reverend Johanna, I don't know if you wish to say anything more about our history or about prayer. If you do, feel free to, but you don't have to. I'm just including you in case, because you always have such great insights that I didn't think to bring up.
I'm good.
Are you good?
Right now I am. I just.
All right, okay. I know that Reverend Johanna and I really believe deeply in the power of prayer. And that is something that we express here in Unity by having prayer chaplains, people who can pray with us, help us to know the truth. And part of the difference, we don't have any prayer police that say to people, no, that's the wrong way to pray. But a method of prayer that we teach here is praying from the presence of God. Jesus, like in raising Lazarus from the dead, he didn't beg and beseech God, God, please raise this person. I'm under pressure here. I'm relying on you. Please raise Lazarus. No. He said, God, I thank you. And I say this on behalf of the people who are listening. I say this on their behalf. And he just turned to the tomb of Lazarus, and he said, Lazarus, come forth. I was impressed by that as a kid. He didn't beg or beseech. He came from that presence of God and stated the word. And so we believe in what's called affirmative prayer. We affirm the truth of what a person is rather than affirming the illness or the disease. We affirm the truth of who they are. Okay, if we can go to the next slide, please. This is a picture of Unity Village. And I'm going to be there in about 3 weeks. I'm going to go to the Unity Convention, and the ordination service and the opening service for the convention will be here at Unity Village. It's a beautiful place. How many of you here have been at Unity Village? Okay. I really invite you to do that. I know Thomas is going to the convention. It will be his first time to see Unity Village. And Kansas City is called the City of Fountains. Unity Village has the largest display of fountains in the Kansas City area. Unity Village is its own municipality, has its own zip code, has its own mayor, has its own sheriff. And even though it's not a large group of people that live there, it's 14 to 1,500 acres of wildlife preserve, trails, lakes, 9-hole golf course, Italian Renaissance architecture, a beautiful hotel, one of the first green hotels to be certified as a environmentally green hotel in the country. Beautiful place. So I'm really looking forward to it. And when I go there, I feel the presence of prayer, because the unity movement for over 125 years has been praying nonstop without any break. And you can feel that prayer consciousness when you walk onto the village. The Fillmores started building on Unity Village. Charles Fillmore had been in real estate business, and he bought this farm, and they had this vision to build what they called Unity Farm. And the first building was completed in 1928. Let's see, it's not showing. Okay, on that view, okay, see over here to the right, that building that's right of the tower from our view, that was the first building to be built. And then right after that, that tall tower, which is the water tower. And there's also offices in there. And so those were built around 1928. And then do you know what happened soon thereafter? 1928. Remember your history? The Depression. So they delayed the building of the rest of the farm. They would go out there, but their headquarters were in downtown Kansas City. So it took a while for them to come back and really build up the rest of it. But you can see the architecture that I was describing. One of the Fillmore sons loved European architecture, and so he used European techniques to build Unity Village. Okay, the next slide. Here's an aerial view. So this part down here, this is the beginning of the golf course. The golf course is down here. Over here is the wildlife preserve, the woods, the trails, the lakes, and the hotel is right here. It's an absolutely gorgeous place. These older buildings all have tunnels underneath that interconnect, which is real handy in wintertime because the heating pipes run through those tunnels. So in wintertime when it's icy or snowing, people walk from building to building using those tunnels, and the tunnels are heated, so, yeah. Next slide. All right. Reverend Johanna, would you like to tell us a little bit about the 12 powers and why are they important to us? What are they?
All right. Well, yes, I can.
Please.
Definitely. Oh,
Go ahead.
I won't.
Go ahead.
Okay. Am I sitting?
You
Okay.
can, or you can stand, whatever you like.
Thank you. All right. So, when I first joined Unity and I became a licensed Unity teacher and all the teachings, to be honest with you, my least favorite thing to learn about was the 12 Powers of Man by Charles Fillmore, because I didn't have the right understanding about it. And then getting the right understanding about these 12 powers, I started to realize how wonderful it was, or they are. And so, as you can see, each month, January, February, March, all the way up to December, represents one of the 12 disciples. Each one had just this special, special characteristics that are alive within each one of us. These qualities that are alive, spiritual qualities that are alive within each one of us. And as we started to implement more and more of the 12 powers in our Sunday service, I started to see how it could come alive for me. And in doing that, then I began to really embrace the 12 powers and started to really, each month, I mean, we should be focusing on all these spiritual powers that are within us, or qualities that are within us. But each month here at Unity Church of Hawaii, we recognize, along with many Unity churches throughout the world, one of these 12 powers, and it usually follows this order. In January, we are going right into the power of faith. Our disciple is Peter, and where it's located within the body is the center of the brain. And it just shows exactly what type of quality that is. It's the ability to believe, intuit, and perceive. And there's an affirmation as well. Faith blesses my day and paves my way. And February we usually do with love, because we have, what is it called? We switch it up a bit, you know, nothing's carved in stone here, but in February we do recognize love because of Valentine's Day. And going through each one of these, when you can really just sit in it, even especially immerse yourself in it for a month, you start to see where you can apply that quality for the month, that power for the month, and then how actually it is one of your superpowers. I call them my superpowers because I know when I show up in faith, or show up in love, or strength, or wisdom, or understanding, that I'm really just doing more of a service to myself and the world. That things start to change because my frame of mind is changing. And when your frame of mind changes, you know, in Romans 12:2, it says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. When we can renew our mind in one of these 12 powers, or in all of these 12 powers, we start to see that life looks different, starts to feel different. Why? Because we're different. And Unity Church of Hawaii especially, we really embrace the 12 powers. And it's in the Bible, you know, Jesus points out, you know, Peter, you are my rock, you're my faith, you know, you stand on this rock. Here I will build my church, I believe is what he said, something like that. And each one of these disciples, Jesus saw a quality that was real special to that disciple. And Charles Fillmore, in being the scholar that he was, he ended up writing the 12 Powers of Man, and really telling us and showing us how each one of these disciples embodied these characteristics, or these spiritual powers and qualities. We also invite each one of you, it's on our website under the spiritual library, but you'll get to see, you can actually download a copy of it and read the text for yourself. And in reading the text, you'll start to understand how each one of these 12 powers can work and does work and operate in your life. And when we're misusing something, or we're not using it enough, we start to see that quality of our life either fade or rise. So if you see something in your life that you wish to maybe have a bit of a shift, or a big shift in, I suggest reading The 12 Powers of Man by Charles Fillmore, and seeing the difference that it makes in the way that you live, the way that you show up, and the way that life shows up to you. And that's all I have.
Good. Thank you. That was great. All right. So let's go to the next slide. And, you know, at some point we'll have a class on the 12 powers to see how to utilize them, because we all use the 12 powers. I mean, like the power of faith is also the power of belief. I believe when I get in my car, I'm going to be able to drive to the other side of the island. And so it's a matter of how we use it. Some people have a belief that everyone is against them. So they're using their power of faith, but they're using it in a way that's not helpful. And they experience the outcome of their faith. They experience all the world being against them because they believe it to be so. Jesus said, be it done to you according to your belief. So we use all of these 12 powers. It's not like they're absent, but are we using them in a way that's really helpful for us? Here's a couple of seminal works within the Unity movement. Discover the Power Within You by Eric Butterworth is one of my all-time favorite Unity books, one of my all-time favorite. And the other one of my all-time favorites is Lessons in Truth by Emily Cady. They really go in depth into, like Emily Cady's book on Lessons in Truth goes into depth on things like how to make affirmations, how to affirm truth in our lives, how to use denials, that is, gently taking power away from beliefs that are grounded in error. To give an example of an error belief. Recently, I thought that maybe there was lack in my life. Well, that's error thinking, because there's no lack in God. And as long as I am aligned in God, there's no lack. But once in a while, we're human. We see the circumstances, and it doesn't look like abundance. It doesn't look like we're prospering. And so I needed to do some work to get back in alignment. So some of that included affirmations of who I really am and who I am in God, who I'm really here to be. It also included denials. But here's an example of a denial. There cannot be a lack of anything when God is everything. That's actually a denial coupled with an affirmation. There cannot be any lack of anything. That's the denial, because God is everything. That's the affirmation. So when Myrtle Fillmore was using that, I am a child of God, therefore I do not inherit sickness, it starts with an affirmation and then ends with a denial. I am a child of God. God, what is God's is mine. What I am is God. Therefore, how could I possibly inherit sickness? If I'm a child of God, how could I inherit that? I can't. That's not in the will. That's not in the trust. God did not put that in the trust. So, anyway, so affirmations and denials are ways to reason with our subconscious mind. And these books help us to get at the core of that. Okay, if we can go to the next slide, please. All right, so we may not have covered all this yet, but who is called the teacher of teachers, at least in New Thought? Yeah, Emma Curtis Hopkins. You got it, yeah. Which of the 5 principles speaks of the divinity of humanity? Now, we didn't go over the 5 basic principles. So the first one is there's only one power. Thank you, Jeff. There's only one power and one presence active as the universe and as my life. God the good. Okay. So that's the first principle. The second principle comes out of that. That means that every single individual, every human being, everything that is an embodiment of all that God is. So that second principle speaks to, if you will, the divinity of humankind. The third principle is that the things that we hold in our mind, the ideas, the things that we nurture in our spirit, we have the tendency to draw ourselves to those things. So if, again, going back to this person who's having a difficult life that believes that everybody and everything is against them, because they continue to nurture that in their consciousness, and they feel it, they embody it, they believe it, they wake up with it in the morning, they affirm it during the day, and they believe it when they go to bed at night. That person will experience that in their life. They are drawing it to themselves, or you could say they are drawing themselves to that. They will look for individuals to tell them or give them a message that somehow they're not good enough or that the world is somehow against them. And if somebody were to tell them, you are wonderful, you are the light of the world, if they were to walk in here and hear me talk about them being the light of the world, their tendency would be to think that person is full of it. That can't be true because it doesn't match, it doesn't resonate with what they are holding in their spirit, in their consciousness. So that's the third principle. The fourth principle is that prayer and meditation, which is the bedrock of the unity movement, prayer and meditation is the way by which we experience that consciousness of God, where we align with God, where we align with that divine presence. And the fifth principle is that it's not enough to know these things. We need to practice them. We need to live them in everyday life. And I like that word practice, because it is a practice. It's something I'm practicing every day. And some days the practice goes well, and some days it doesn't. But it's a practice. I just keep getting up and going at it again, because it's a practice. Who are the co-founders of the Unity movement? Yeah, Myrtle and Charles. Right. Myrtle Fillmore used a powerful affirmation to treat herself. What is that affirmation?
I am a child of God. Therefore, I cannot inherit sickness.
That's right. You got it. Yeah, you got it. You got it. Now, this next question, there's no clear answer on this. And when I've asked this in classes, I get all kinds of interesting answers. Yeah. What do you think makes the unity movement unique in comparison to other churches? Any quick responses to that? Hi, Judy. Any quick responses to that? Oh, we have a mic, by the way. Because we're online. I just now thought of that.
Thank you, Reverend Tim. So one of the things that makes the unity movement unique in comparison to other churches is that all other churches are welcome in the unity church. Catholics, Sufis, Buddhists.
That's a good point.
Right? I think that's a thing. And the other thing I was going to say is they don't have a strong dogma in the unity church. It's not like there are a lot of things that you can do wrong.
Right.
They're very accepting in the unity movement.
Right. We have a lot of principles, spiritual principles and spiritual knowledge, but we leave it up to each individual to decide what works for them, and so we're very pragmatic in that sense. So we have definite spiritual beliefs, lots of them. But we're not dogmatic in the sense that here is the list of things you must believe in order to become a member. Here are the list of things that you must believe or else you're going to hell. Unity isn't like that. There are churches that are. Yeah. Anyone else? Anything you think is unique about unity?
I think one thing that I discovered about unity is, like other churches, they call names. And Unity Church doesn't call bad names. I mean, I went to churches in the South, and they would literally say bad names, and I don't know if I'm describing it right, but Unity Church doesn't call people bad names.
Yeah.
Are you talking about like sinner?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the devil, and you're going to hell and all of that. I've never heard Unity Church mention anything like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, unity is very inclusive, very affirming. And you got it, Jeff. Thank you. And thank you, Olga Lucia. And unity believes in original blessing. Unity believes that we are inherently good. Now, sometimes, like I watch the news, and it's like, do I still believe that we're inherently good? It can be a challenge. You see things that are like, it doesn't look like we're always inherently good. But we really believe that. But we also believe that a lot of people have forgotten that. They've forgotten that they are this presence of God. They've forgotten who they are. It's like we have this spiritual amnesia, and we've forgotten that we are this presence. So we do believe that first principle, that there's only one power and one presence living as the universe and as us. So that power is living as us, even those stinkers. I guess I just used a name. But even some of those people that might be difficult to get along with, they are the presence of God too, right? Okay. All right, next slide. And Reverend Johanna, if you want to jump in at any point, feel free to. Oh, I just went through that. Okay, we can go to the next. Who we are. Okay, so we provide a philosophy that is more spiritual than religious. That's getting back to your comment, Jeff. We're a spiritual organization. We exist for people to experience transformation, to inspire people to make a positive difference in our world. We're a spiritual organization, but we're not so religious in the sense of being real dogmatic, or you've got to do it this way, like. Now, I don't have anything against the Catholic Church. There are some people who sometimes have done things that have been very harmful, and I don't believe in that. But I love the Catholic Church. But I've seen some things that are like, eh. So I remember being at a Mass, and the priest got up, and because there were a number of people, South Americans, who hadn't been to Mass for a while, the priest got up, and it was a wedding. It was a wedding Mass. He said, now if you haven't gone to confession on a regular basis, you may not come up here and receive communion. You are not eligible for that. Am I clear? Do you get it? I mean, he was talking just like that. I was like, wow, that doesn't sound like Jesus. But I contrast that with the priest at the parish where I was active. And when I was becoming a Unity minister, I said, Father Mike, is it a problem? Well, first he congratulated me on becoming a Unity minister. And then I said, Father Mike, is it an issue if I were wanting to receive Catholic communion? He said, Tim, whose table is it? It's not my table. I said, well, it's Jesus' table. He said, that's right. And who did he invite? I said, he invited everyone. He said, that's right. And so that's what we practice. Now, you won't hear that from all Catholic priests, but Father Mike, it was amazing. So we provide a philosophy that is more spiritual than religious. We are love-based, not fear-based. I'm not putting down churches, but there are churches that are very fear-based. Sometimes I heard a lot more about the devil than I did about God. It's like, and I can remember in Sunday school saying, is the devil equal to God? Does he have as much power as God? No, Timmy. Then why do we talk about the devil so much? And they paused. Anyway, we are love-based, not fear-based. We honor all paths to God. Now, I want to be clear about this, and I'm very involved in interfaith work, and I'm on the Interfaith Intercultural team for Unity Worldwide Ministries that presents it. places. But unity honors all paths to God and honors the path that you are on, but unity has specific teachings. It's not just a free-for-all. Sometimes people don't understand that. I remember hearing someone say, well, I want to go to unity because you can believe and do anything at unity, and that's true, but in one sense, but in another sense, we have clear teachings and clear ways that we do things. So it's not like we're just a smoothie where everything is put in the blender and blended, and then we, I don't know. But I also, I'm a Christian, a devotee, but I'm a Christian. I'm very, very devoted to Jesus. Now, if I were to say that in some churches, they'd go, what the heck did you just say? So we are open to other paths, but we also recognize that unity is its own path, that it has its own teachings. And on September 9th, Shad Groverland, who is the CEO of Unity Worldwide Ministries, will be here on Saturday, September 9th, for an all-day workshop called The Power of Focused Ministry. I need to remember to say that in the community update. And it is about focusing on what we are really here to do, and focusing on unity beliefs, and focusing on what the Fillmores taught, and bringing that about. So, and we believe in making a positive difference in the world. Yeah, Jeff, you have a mic.
You're on the last one about we honor all paths to God, but you said we do have principles.
We have definite beliefs and principles. People can believe whichever ones work for them, but we have definite teachings that we teach.
And were those the 5 that we covered 2 slides ago?
Those are the 5 main principles, but we believe a whole lot of other things as well, like the 12 powers that Reverend Johanna was about affirmations and denials, which could be included in number 3 of the primary principles. But we have all kinds of teachings and principles, and we believe that it really generally requires practice to embody them, because we've been programmed to believe some weird stuff. Like I'm still at times dealing with that thing of someone's against me. And it's like, no, I don't believe that. I know there's only one power and one presence. But my ego will say, really? Are you sure? And maybe some of you in Matthew chapter 4 have read about the temptations of Jesus. Jesus was tempted. And I see it in some ways as Jesus struggling with his own ego. Because he was fully human as well as fully God. And in the same way, we are fully human and we're here to fully embody God. So we have those struggles. I don't know, at least I do. And I have hopes that you all are doing so well that you don't even have to deal with this stuff anymore. But I'm just being real.
I remember when I was going to a church in the South, and the women could not wear pants.
Yeah.
We had to always wear dresses.
Right.
And it was wintertime, and one time I wore pants, tights, and boots. And this, excuse me, sister, can I talk to you after service? But you're not supposed to wear, they told me I wasn't supposed to wear pants. Right.
Yes.
That was really South.
Yeah. And I grew up in a tradition like that. The college I went to, the girls had to wear dresses. And there was an actual measurement on how high the dress could be above the kneecap. And there were certain people that would call girls in if it was above that. And if a guy had hair that was too long, they had measurements for that. So, the baccalaureate or whatever, like the day before the graduation, they parade you out in front of everybody. When I was graduating from that college. And the student advisor, vice president of the college, pulled me aside and said, if you do not cut your hair, you are not walking out with your graduating class. So my mom cut my hair in the hotel room that night. And some people in some traditions have gotten real focused on those externals. I mean, we couldn't go to movies, we couldn't dance, we couldn't, a whole lot of things we couldn't do. It's a lot about what you couldn't do. Yeah. And now at that college, they're doing a whole lot of that stuff we couldn't do before. Because somehow God changed his mind. Anyway, let's go to the next slide. I think I'm diverting. The 3 yeses. Okay, so this is what we're teaching. This is something that we've started as part of the Integral Ministry Program. It's something to help us to really build the beloved community, to help people to really embody and embrace being part of the beloved community here. So we have 3 yeses. So we ask of people if they're becoming a community member, if they're willing to say yes to these 3 things. The first thing is we ask that you say yes to deepening your own spiritual growth, your own spiritual education by participating in classes, events, spirit groups, small group ministry, and what you take and how involved you become is completely up to you, but that you say yes to wanting to grow and get involved in classes. Secondly, we ask that you say yes to participating in some form of meaningful sacred service in our ministry or in the wider community. That sacred service is part of being the beloved community. It's one of the ways we connect with others. It's one of the ways we embody our spirituality. So if a person is wanting to become a community member, they will say yes to this. When we do the renewals of membership going forward later on this year, these 3 yeses will be on everyone's renewal of membership form. We're going to ask everyone who is a member to say yes to these 3 things so that they're involved. Now, some people might say, well, Reverend Tim, we might lose some people. Really? We're going to lose some people? Like, we're going to lose some people who are doing no sacred service in the community or in our church? We're going to lose people who are not committed to their spiritual growth? Okay, I'm all right with that. I mean, I want everyone who is here to be involved, and people are free to become a member or not, and a person can be involved without being a member. But I'm not into building a membership list just for the sake of seeing how many people I can get on a membership list. Building the beloved community is about people who are really committed to their community. So the third yes, last, is we ask that you say yes to a designated level of monthly financial support of Unity Church of Hawaii. So now, currently, I don't know, this figure might have changed a little bit, but last I saw the calculations, when I first started here, there were about 100 donors. And when we divided 100 donors up among the budget that we have, not counting So part of our budget is paid for by the school. The school monthly contributes to the church. The wellness center down here monthly contributes to the church. The counseling center contributes to the church. There are some other sources of revenue. When you take out of the budget the amount for which they pay, the remaining amount of budget, when divided by 100, at least around the time that I came out to about $250 per month per person. Not everyone can pay $250 per month. And, some people were like, oh, are you saying I have to give that much? No. This is between you and God. But that's about how much it costs per person. There are a number of people here who are on fixed incomes or other situations going on in their lives. They're not able to give at that level. So saying yes to that third thing is saying, I agree to give at the level that I am able to support this spiritual community. Now, that being said, there are people here who can give above $250 a month. And so they also help a great deal. So we ask you to prayerfully think about in what way you can financially support this beloved community. And that's the third yes. Now, Reverend Johanna has kind of a fourth yes. Now, it's not like on our form, but there's something very important, which earlier I called the foundation of our movement. So, Reverend Johanna, maybe you want to say something about prayer or about other things.
I wanted to just first touch base because I wasn't sure if it was that you said it, but it's not that we are asking, the cooperative share is $250, but that's for operational expenses. Just the very basic, what it means to keep the lights on, the music going, the staff paid, the roof in good repair, and the toilets flushing. It does generate an expense each and every month. And so this is what we're giving to make sure that we can continue on providing these services to you in with the right amount of staff and the buildings where you can sit down and not worry if the floor is going to collapse on you. And so I just think that was important, so it's not that, give this much and then, it goes somewhere else. It's really, that's just the bare basics of keeping the lights on each and every month at Unity Church of Hawaii. And then the fourth thing that each and every time I teach, or, I'm up here, I'm like, I need to add it. But it's really, as Reverend Tim said, the foundation of what the Unity movement is about, and it's about prayer. Keep this church community, the leadership, those that are sitting in the chairs, those online, each one of us, included yourself in that, in your daily prayer practice. If you don't have a daily prayer practice, develop a daily prayer practice. On our website, we show you, the different types of modes of prayer and everything, and it walks you through the steps of an affirmative prayer. Keep this spiritual community in your prayer practice. I believe, and this is just me, that prayer is probably the most important commitment in this community, because when we pray together, we stay together, and it raises the consciousness.
I agree with that.
And that's why it is foundational. That's our rock.
Right.
And so it goes unmoved, unbudged. And when we can all be like that collectively, we're a power to be reckoned with, because God is that power.
Good. Thank you. Thank you. So is there another slide? Is this the last slide? Staff and Board of Trustees. Well,
they're here around here.
Okay, Johanna and I are on staff, and Debbie used to be on our board and served on our board for a number of years and did a beautiful job as our Board of Trustees treasurer. And we thank you for your service Now, you might hand, and Benita has been on our board as well.
Finance committee.
You were on the finance committee. So, either one of you wish to speak to the value of being on the board? Putting you on the spot.
I just want to say
Yeah.
one thing. I learned a lot being on the board. It wasn't just me just coming to church. I saw the other side of the church.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned, and then I joined different committees, and I felt obligated, not just being a congregant, but I felt an obligation of being on the board of trustees. And it was something that I learned. I learned something, the good and the bad.
Thank you, Benita. And I'll just say that Benita and Debbie and myself were on the board when we went through some very challenging times. And this church has done a lot of work to work on our shadow side, to learn to speak in a nonviolent, compassionate communication. We're learning lots of things through our leadership training on communication, being open and curious with people who have a different perspective and experience than us, being committed to candor, but speaking openly, but also listening to those who are speaking in candor. So we've made huge, gigantic leaps, So this board is a phenomenal board to serve on. It is amazing. Is that David back there?
It is, yes.
Yeah, David is our newest Board of Trustees member. And so I think David can attest to the fact that we have wonderful camaraderie, communication, work together, bring different perspectives to the table. And it sounds like Debbie would like to say something. Debbie.
Yeah, I'll say something.
Thank you.
I had been a member of this church for about 20 years before, and also knowing that there would come a time when I needed to provide service to the church, because this church has provided me with that spiritual growth that I felt was so important. And so after I retired, I decided to put in my papers for board service and found great value in providing that service to the church. Mm-hmm. Not just in the work that we did, but also in the friendships and the camaraderie that I was able to achieve as a board member. So it was very, very valuable.
Thanks.
And I'm glad that I did it.
Good. Thank you, Debbie. You did it. Yeah, thank you both, and David. And that brings up sacred service, that there's a lot of ways in which people can participate in sacred service here. Is that on there? Oh, good.
The words are the words.
I'm following the outline. So you've probably met Tina. Those of you online, you may not have met Tina. Tina is a fantastic sacred service coordinator. That's what we're calling her now. That's what I'm calling her, sacred service coordinator. We used to say volunteer coordinator, but in some places a volunteer, there could be a nuance of just grabbing somebody who's willing and put them to work in some area, whether or not it actually fits them. Whereas sacred service is about us living into our gifts, living into our expression of God. Tina and I are looking at the curriculum from Unity Worldwide Ministries for spiritual gifts discovery. And we will have a workshop on helping people to discover their spiritual gifts. And like if a person is a greeter or usher, it's good if a person knows whether or not they like people. If they don't like people, maybe usher and greeter is not the best position for them. You know, maybe they like looking at numbers. Okay, we have some other ways in which you can serve. You know, so matching people with what their gifts are so that they experience fulfillment and growth. And it is good also to be challenged, okay? So, like I can remember at Unity of Wichita when I was a prayer chaplain. Now, that really fit where I was at, but it also challenged me because I had kind of sort of made this commitment that I wasn't going to get involved in any more churches. But I found out that, wow, this feels so right to join people in prayer. And it was by stretching that spiritual gift in my life that I became open to more things, like becoming the associate minister there and then becoming the senior minister there. But not that that's necessarily going to happen with some others, but whenever we get involved in sacred service, it helps to expand us, grow us, and helps us to connect with others. So it's part of transformation. Sacred service is not separate from transforming lives or from making a positive difference in our world. Sacred service is a means of transformation as well as making a positive difference. So, any other slides or any other thoughts? Did you have? I think you have some other thoughts.
Maybe. You know, that's how I started off here, actually. And that was the last slide, Reverend Tim.
How did you, what area did you?
I was in the media department.
Okay.
So when I first started out here, we had Owen, that was the media director. And right away, I felt this call to jump in. And what I found was I came to Hawaii a little bit lost and like, oh, what am I to do, God, and everything else. And I found this community. And in sacred service, I've kind of found my relationship with God, and without even realizing what I was doing. And so whether you're punching numbers on the finance committee or you are out there mowing the lawn with our groundskeeping crew or answering phone calls in the front office, it's always this sacred service to, yes, with this community, but also to that God within. It's like, Brother Lawrence, who could be doing the most menial of tasks, washing dishes, doing whatever, but it was his service to God. When we say we're here for God and for God only, that is really what we're doing, is serving that. And you'll start to find something within you that ignites, that has a passion towards this service. You'll learn so much more about yourself, so much more about the Creator, and I feel like it really helps to lift this community, because when one is lifted, we're all lifted. And I feel like sacred service is a beautiful opportunity to dive deep into this dance with God.
Right.
You know, it's really a dance. And it doesn't matter what it looks like. You can share your gifts, your spiritual, everyone has spiritual gifts, and you can share your gifts in ways.
I'll be right back. Keep going.
Yeah, no worries. So I'm going to sit down and keep this warm for you, Reverend Tim. So you can share your spiritual gifts, and I believe in a couple of months we're going to have a spiritual gifts kind of seminar or class where each one of the community, you're invited to come out, and there's a questionnaire and a class that you can take to really see where you're gifted in, and you can be of service to this community in those gifts, or to the greater community in those gifts, or you can try to see to grow yourself in another area. Me, I'm good at media and stuff, but at times, one thing I did not like was finance, numbers, and then suddenly I'm thrown into the finance committee being the administrator. Then I realized I have a love for numbers too. It wasn't apparent, and it wasn't apparent in my grades growing up. But then I started to see how these numbers are actually music, and how they blend well, and how I can figure out this, like the health of a community, the health of a certain ministry, just by looking at the numbers. And, then, something else came alive for me in those moments. And then I was in youth ministry. I had enough kids of my own, and I was in youth ministry suddenly. And then I started to see that I actually really do love teaching young minds. So you never know the areas that you'll find your joy in until you go out there and start to, kind of go in and embed yourself in, and you'll find that you are more expanded and more gifted in ways that you may not have realized. So I say put yourself out there. Be in sacred service. On Sundays, Tina has a list of things that we could use some sacred service in, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised, and you're going to find out a lot about yourself during the process as well.
Thank you, Reverend Johanna. So we have application forms. If anyone is interested, and I don't know if these are available on our website. No? Not yet. So these are applications for community membership. If you are interested and you are online, you could write me at Rev Tim, REVTIM, short for Reverend, Rev Tim at unityhawaii.org. And we can send you this if you're interested in being a community member. You can be online. You can be, in Australia, and you can be doing service in Australia. That is still saying yes to that commitment. You can still support this ministry in what ways you're able to. You can still say yes to deepening your spiritual walk and life by our educational classes. We do actually have someone from Australia in our classes. So this is for you online, those in person. We have these forms. I feel like I forgot something, but I think we covered quite a bit. Did you think of anything we missed, Reverend Johanna? Oh, yeah, that's what. I was going to give time for questions and answers if anyone had questions. But did you have any? Okay. Jeff, go ahead.
So I'm hoping that you can talk more about a concept that you've mentioned, about the beloved community, what it is, what it's not, what does it look like?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite subjects. The beloved community is building that community that Jesus talked about, that he prayed for in John chapter 17. Father, may they all be one, even as we are one. And one in what way? One in the sense that we can share with one another where we're really at in our lives and receive emotional and spiritual support. That we won't be judged, but that we will be affirmed. Beloved community is also inclusive. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. talked a lot about the beloved community. If you Google it, you'll see a lot of quotes from Martin Luther King Jr. And it's about being open to people of all faiths, all traditions, all colors, sexual orientations. It's about standing for justice and equity. And I want to explain the difference between equality and equity. Equality, picture three boys. Well, I'm saying boys. It could be girls or boys. Imagine three children who are wanting to watch a baseball game over the fence of the baseball stadium. One child might be 3 foot tall. Another child might be 4 foot tall. Another one might be 4'5". Equality is giving them all the same size box to stand on. So they're all treated equally. But the 3-foot boy can't even see over the fence with the size of box that he's been given. That's equality. Equity is making sure each one of them has the size of box that they need. So, sometimes we talk in our country about equal rights, but is everything equitable? So, again, I'm thinking of some places I've lived where it's written into the deed of the house that a person of color cannot buy that house. It's called redlining. Well, we can say that there's equal opportunity and it's illegal to discriminate, but is everyone on an equal playing ground? Can everyone afford a huge down payment? I heard of a system recently, which is similar to GoFundMe, where a person can start an account that other people can contribute into so that they can make a down payment on a house. I was fascinated with that. That's equity. Trying to, those who may, be at a different position, raising them up so that they actually have the same opportunities as other people. That's equity. So building the beloved community is also about building equity here and in the world, helping to create a world that works for everyone. That's a big vision. And the way we do that is by our consciousness, by how we treat one another, by how we show up in the world and knowing who we really are. That's a brief response. I could talk much longer about it and probably need to give another message on exactly what I mean by the beloved community. But that's an excellent question. Did that lead to more questions?
No, thank you.
Okay. Because there's a lot to it. Jim Lockhart, who is from Centers for Spiritual Living, he's a trainer in Centers for Spiritual Living, has written probably more than 2 books, but he has 2 books on the beloved community. One is called Creating the Beloved Community, and the newest book is Being the Beloved Community. He's going to be one of the keynote speakers at the Convention for Unity. And certainly the writings and teachings of Martin Luther King, some of which was heavily influenced by Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi really taught the principles of the beloved community, living in community, supporting one another. And in the New Testament church, in Acts chapter 4, towards the end of that chapter, it says they held all things in common. No one had a need. Imagine this. Just imagine it. I know it's a big vision. But in that early New Testament church, it said no one had any need because everyone shared as they could. Think about a community that's living like that. That's a beloved community. So there's a lot to it, but basically it's a place that stands for the dignity, the divinity of each human being and treats each other as such. Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? What's that? Oh, yeah. Thank you. There is my email. If any of you need to connect with me or you have questions or if you're interested in becoming a community member, we can we can send you a document online of the form and so that you can become a community member here. Okay? So we just bless each and every one of you. We see you as the presence of God and we give thanks. And so it is. Amen. And thank you for coming today. And thank you, Reverend Johanna. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, online people. Blessings to you.